Hey guys, it's your pal Victor here, and we're doing a quick review of the latest from Wes Anderson, The French Dispatch, so stay tuned. So, for years, Wes Anderson was one of my favorite directors. The Life Aquatic, Rushmore, The Royal Tenenbaums, some of my favorite movies. I enjoyed The Darjeeling Limited, but not as much. Same with Isle of Dogs. It's a fun movie, but not 100% my thing. So, the kind of joke is that Wes Anderson movies have sort of become their own genre. It's very aesthetic driven, much like the films of Yorgos Lanthimos. If you've seen Dogtooth, The Lobster, or The Killing of a Sacred Deer, they're all sort of like a very specific aesthetic that is particular to his films. Wes Anderson, the same thing, with a very visually, specific film. Everything looks like a set. The use of the Futuro font, everything is very Wes Anderson. And while some of his early films I think really worked with that, I think as time went on, the story didn't particularly start to fit the aesthetic. I think where French Dispatch kind of varies, it's sort of an anthology film. It follows a this paper called the French Dispatch, set up in France, that is a French basically outlet for a newspaper in Kansas. And the whole film is set up as sort of like the different sections in a magazine with an overarching story, featuring Bill Murray's character, who is the editor of the newspaper, who is in ill health, and how sort of the people who work for his newspaper, he's very much a champion of letting the writer do their specific thing. To that end, each of the sections basically a series of standalone stories. There's three in particular. The first one is one that stars Benicio del Toro and Lea Seydoux, where he is an artist in prison who work is discovered by Adrian Brody, a fellow prisoner who just happens to be an arts patron who wants to make this prisoner into a much bigger painter than he is, and his masterpiece that he creates while he's in prison, and his relationship with his captor. This is the best story. It's in black and white. In many ways, it sort of reminds me of the Coen brothers film about the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. I probably butchered that title, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, something along those lines. I'm not pinpointing the exact title, but it starred Tim Blake Nelson as a singing cowboy, and then sort of an anthology. And this is sort of the same thing. The second story in the anthology involves Timothée Chalamet and Frances McDormand, sort of about like 60s student protests in France in a way. And there is an overarching element, by the way, in the Lea Seydoux story involving Tilda Swinton that is hilarious. And then the third story involves Jeffrey Wright, who's very hot right now. And he basically plays a writer who, gets bailed out of prison by Bill Murray, who has to write sort of a story about a culinary bent, and Jeffrey Wright's character has a photographic memory when it comes to his own writing, and he's interviewed on a show, and he tells a story about a very famous police chief in France. And that's my second favorite story of the film. Overall, I think the documentary aspect works really well for this movie. I would like actually to see Wes Anderson kind of stick to anthology films strictly moving forward. But if you are a fan of sort of old school Wes Anderson and you've been missing that vibe in his newer movies, this is the movie you should check out. And there's some really cool animated scenes here too that I really dug a lot. In any case, check out The French Dispatch. It's a watchable movie. Not the best thing I've seen this year, but it's much better than a lot of his recent films, particularly Moonrise Kingdom, which I wasn't a fan of, and Ed Norton is much better than this one. Anyway, enjoy it, check it out, let me know what you think, and we will talk to you soon. See ya.